Happy day, YouTube. My name is John, and this is my channel, The Intermancer. At the end of the last episode, I had just pushed some of my changes up to GitHub, but I hadn't done anything with them yet, and all I had changed was adding this line here. This is a really basic line, and this is one of those times when it would be much easier for me to just make the change that I needed in the class so that we're all on the same page here. Here's what we're doing. This chromosome class here has a property called genes, but it doesn't expose genes except as a protected property. So that means it could be accessed by things that extend from chromosome, but it can't be accessed by something like this basic seeder, which wants to access the genes. And you see we have these compile errors. So the first thing that I'm going to do is go over here to Claude and go over to my projects, this guy F. One thing I've learned is that it's preferable to start new conversations often, start new chats often with the LLM. LLMs have a tendency to start hallucinating more when you give them too much of a context, and the chat that you've been building is part of that context. So what I do often is I just come over here and refresh the project knowledge and then ask a new question. If you'll remember, maybe you don't remember, but this project inclusion is based on the JSON in and out branch of my GitHub project that I've been working on. So everything's updated now. What changes are, you are a Java developer, rewrite the chromosome class so that it matches the specification in, what is this? Organism domain objects.md. Organism domain objects.md. Again, this is the kind of change it'd be easier for me to make just straight in the code. But if I'm taking a context-first approach, then I need to be sure that I start by making changes to the context and then asking the LLM to regenerate the Java files for me. That keeps everything in sync. Let's see, so it's got set genes and get genes. And that is all good enough. Implements chromosome ID copy. Then come over here to chromosome. Get all of this and paste. Save that. Basic seeder is still going to have the same error. But now I will push this change to chromosome up to GitHub. Commit and push that. Go back to my project. Update the GitHub. So this will pull in the change to chromosome. It already has everything else. And here, can I just have it do, okay. Now projects, I'm just gonna do a new chat. Like I said, rewrite basic seeder.java so that it agrees with so that it uses chromosome correctly. Let's see what that does. And it's thinking, pondering, stand by. Probably having to wait to get in line. I've been making some changes. Private field genes. Adds that. There's the basic seeder. There's those same methods. It has the same thing. There it goes. See, now instead of saying chromosome.genes, it says chromosome.getGenes and adds. The only thing I want to check is I want to make sure that chromosome is initialized with an empty list so that chromosome.getGenes actually returns something. Let's check that real quick. Chromosome, genes, new array list, excellent. Basic seeder. Come back over here, copy this, paste that, save. No compile errors. Now we will do the build, make sure everything's green. Excellent. Oh, no problems. Build failed with an exception. What was the output? What was the exception? What? Build. Compile test Java failed. Chromosome.genes. Where's that in my code? Organism test. Organism test. Oh, look at that. So why didn't it tell me about this? I wish it had told me about this. Okay. Should be fine though. I don't have to update any of my code for this. So I should say rewrite organism test.java so that it uses chromosome correctly. Interesting thing I'm learning. This way I'm going back and forth. I'm using the compiler to tell me where the errors are, and then I'm coming back to the LLM to generate those classes. The LLM isn't smart enough to go through all of the code. I didn't ask it to go through all of the code to identify the changes it would need. That's something I think I just learned. I need to get better. I need to make it a point to, when I make a change to the context document, ask the LLM to analyze all the Java classes and tell me which ones need to change based on the changes that I made. I probably ought to highlight what I changed in the context document. But let's see. Add chromosome, get genes. Okay, it did all that. We're just going to take this. I don't want to... Okay, good. We'll just copy this. Organism test, all of this, paste that, save that, and come back to Gradle and do the build. What? More. Okay, this is in chromosome test. Chromosome test. I should have thought of that. Okay, there's the same errors. Same errors. So same solution. Just come here and say, actually, let's do it now. First we will analyze the Java files and determine what changes are necessary based on the description of chromosome in organism domain objects.md. Organism domain objects.md. Let's see if it does that. Okay. Chromosome test. Still going. Oh, look, it gave it to me here. And here it says chromosome new. Get genes. So it does it there for chromosome test. Okay. And it looks like I've already done basic seeder and organism test based on the stuff that's here. Basic seeder and organism test. I've already done that. So all I need is chromosome test, which it gave me here. So I'll copy this. It's interesting. It told me same. It told me here for organism test and basic seeder, the same things as in chromosome test. It just happened to start with chromosome test, which is the only one I still need to make changes to. Sometimes God gives us small favors, right? Did I already copy that? Copy. All V. Save that. Now go back here, do the build. Build successful. Excellent. Close that. And go ahead and push this up. Push this up. And I will commit and push. All right. That was very exciting. That was very exciting. All of that works. Now I know the next thing I need to do is to add a controller to my experimentation. Close others. Okay. What I need to do now is I need to add an experiment controller to my experimentation context file. So experiment life cycle, seeding, and then the objects, blah, blah, blah. We're going to say objects supporting, objects to support, I don't need a camel case, to support the experiment life cycle. And then I'll add a whole new section down here. For experiment. How did I do this? How did I do this for my other one? How did I do my, did I just give it endpoints? Okay, server details. I have a server details section. Experiment. We'll just say server details. Details like we did for the other one. And then just to make sure I keep everything in line, we'll say experiment controller. Experiment controller. And just like I have you know what, all of this is true. The experiment controller is going to auto wire in these things. So let's just steal that text. The experiment controller is in the controller package that inherits from the base project package. It implements the endpoints described in this document. Uses Spring Boot. We'll just say the experiment controller auto wires an organism repository and an experiment. I called it experiment, right? Experiment lifecycle. What do I call the objects? Seeder. Okay. Seeding. Okay, all I've defined right now for the experiment life cycle is the seeding phase. And I've defined a seeder. But I haven't defined an object that runs the experiment as a whole. So we will say that do I need an, I don't need an interface for now. We'll see. We'll see if I need to later. We'll say that the, all of the things first. Basic seeder. So, as I mentioned in my previous video, I think, I'm not certain, but I think it will make things easier for the LLM if I first describe all of the classes that are necessary in dependency order. So I know that my experiment is going to need a seeder first. So we will talk about the basic seeder configuration and bean in a moment. We'll say that this is seeder, experiment, the experiment class implements the life cycle, experiment life cycle phases, mostly by delegating to composed objects, to injected objects, classes, objects. Methods. Seeding, seed. Okay. This, remember, the context document is intended to be human readable, but very, very clean, not with a lot of extra words. But here I definitely have some repetition. Here you can see that I'm describing seed as a phase in the experiment life cycle. And this whole experiment life cycle section is kind of like orientation that all of the other classes will follow. This is where I think at the high level first, and then I descend down into the details. So the experiment organisms. I started putting this experiment right in the middle of my basic seeder. Get all this out of here. Close that. Server details. Okay. There we go. Methods. Methods for experiment. And the first one is seed. Void. Ooh, I didn't specify that in the other thing up here. Method, seeder. Void seed. Okay, so I'm thinking about it, and the question is, do I want to inject the organism repository into the seeder, or do I want to pass an organism repository into the seeder and have the experiment where everything gets injected? I'm going to go with the last one. So I'm thinking out loud. I'm trying to be better about thinking out loud. Organism repository, repo, into the provided repo. Concrete implementations. I don't need this because I'm kind of getting away from that now. And here I will say calls the seed method of the injected seeder, passing in the injected organism repository. And you'll notice that here in this seed, I don't have void and I don't have organism repository. So I'm trusting the LLM to recognize that this is the method that I'm talking about. It's a good hope. We'll see how it works out. Experiment. Mostly by delegating to injected objects. Has a concrete organism repository, and here this is going to end up being a whole section. Injected dependencies, auto-wired dependencies. The experiment has concrete depends on auto-wired instances of seeder and organism repository. That's all well and good, but now I have to make this basic seeder my default one. The basic seeder uses component and uses the component annotation to make itself available to other classes. Okay, we already have basic seeder. this is going to mean I'm going to have to regenerate that. And it will have to create the experiment class and the experiment controller, and I need endpoints. How did I do that? Okay. Get set post. Get seed. So we'll do that. For get endpoints is for experiment controller. Endpoints, organism controller. Ooh, look at this. Look at this. Server details, organism controller, endpoints. Okay, endpoints is at the same level as the controller. It implements described later. It's described below in this document. Here, described. That's fine. I don't think that's below. Too many words. Try to get rid of unnecessary words. So that makes this one 3, 4. Set. Get. Oh, I need the endpoints. I need to do the endpoints. So organism will have endpoints. We'll start with 1, 2, 3, 4. Do I put the slash begin or in beginning, right? Yes. Experiment. Okay, I'm just going to tilde this just so I use the same format for this new one. Trying to get to the end here before my time runs out. Experiment. For endpoints. That. Manage the experiment life cycle. Okay, experiment get, and here did I go with, okay, organism repo post, for sure, whatever. So get experiment seed. Seeds, the organism repository with the organisms returned created by the seeder and returns all of the organism IDs. Okay. All I changed was this. I'm going to push this up real quick because I want to make sure I have everything having to do with an episode up on GitHub by the end of the episode. And our next episode, we will see if we can actually implement these changes. Thank you for your time. I hope you're enjoying this as much as I am. I'll talk to you soon.